Hello everyone and welcome to Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture. This week coming to you from the state of Mississippi. On the show this time, we go to the opening of a new exhibit at the Ag Museum.
They can see the display, they can play the games that are here and learn more about the commodities that we eat every day and reminding them that we do have the safest affordable food in the world.
We show you how baby chicks are vaccinated before they're even hatched.
The vaccine that used to be administered to a chick by hand is now given to an embryo at about 18 days of incubation, where the vaccine is delivered directly to a sac that surrounds the embryo called the amnion.
We look at how agriculture is being promoted by some very innovative county farm bureaus.
When the traffic would start by and I would step out in the street and wave my little boa and hold up the sign, some people would look at me and then they'd look off and then they'd look back like, did I really see a chicken on the street in front of the Farm Bureau office? This doesn't happen in Carroll County very often.
And we go with some legislators on an ag tour.
Agriculture is the #1 industry in the state of Mississippi.
And I believe that if all of the legislators, Senate and House members could come out and see what it is that farmers do, they would have a better insight as to why it is important to fund these kind of activities that we need.
We'll have our Meet a Farmer segment with a cattle and row crop farmer from South Mississippi. Plus, we'll have our Mississippi on the Menu segment with Nancy Freeman. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
And you can tell this is just a great little dish.
Teaching the public about the benefits of agriculture is the foundation of the Farm Families of Mississippi organization. To help spur that along, a new display designed and paid for by the Farm Families of Mississippi is now open at the Mississippi Ag and Forestry Museum in Jackson. This 30-foot wide display highlights many different areas of agriculture in a colorful panorama. There are 3 kiosks that allow museum visitors to delve further into the subjects depicted on the wall.
I think this display actually gives them an opportunity to see where their food is produced and how it's produced. You know, it gives them an opportunity to see how we in agriculture take care of our animals and, you know, how that food is produced from those animals. And, you know, to me it's so exciting to be a part of this display because it does give those kids an opportunity. And, you know, like we talked about before with the computers, that's what kids learn today on is computers. And, you know, they can get on these computers and have fun and at the same time learn about where their food comes from and, you know, the clothes they wear.
2 of the kiosks contain an iBook that chronicle many of the basics of agriculture. There are 21 videos in the book and many eye-catching graphics and charts. The center kiosk is a game console that features 16 computer games that teach kids and adults about agriculture.
We have an extremely wonderful relationship with the Department of Agriculture. Miss Cindy Hyde-Smith, the commissioner, has just been over backwards to try to help us in farm families.
We are the Agriculture Museum, but we certainly love to have new displays that come in that can maybe give it a different angle, something fresh, and this is definitely fresh. It is very appealing because we want to get our stories out. You know, farmers are the greatest people in the world, but they're not good at tooting their own horn. And we certainly want this display here so all the school children as well as the adults that come to the Ag Museum, they can see the display, they can play the games that are here and learn more about the commodities that we eat every day and reminding them that we do have the safest affordable food in the world, but actually let them see who's growing that food, how they're growing it, and just more about ag production in Mississippi, which is our #1 industry.
The Mississippi Ag and Forestry Museum is located in Jackson and is open from 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday. The poultry industry is the largest single commodity in Mississippi, contributing over $2.5 billion to the state's economy each year, and it continues to grow. And as the industry grows, technology continues to advance to allow further progress. One area that has seen improvements is in overall health of the birds. This has been advanced by the use of vaccinations that are administered before the birds are even hatched. Baby chicks are 1 day old when they come to the farm. Their arrival is anticipated as the houses are cleaned, stocked with plenty of fresh food and water, and are just the right temperature. But one thing the farmer doesn't have to do once the chicks arrive is vaccinate them one by one. That task has already been completed before the chicks even hatch. Dr. David Peebles, an avian physiologist in the Poultry Science Department at Mississippi State, explains the process.
In ovo, or INOVO, just means in the egg. So what that means is that the vaccine that used to be administered to a chick by hand is now given to an embryo at about 18 days of incubation, where the vaccine is delivered directly to a sac that surrounds the embryo called the amnion. And the vaccine is delivered to that amnion, and then that chick aspirates and basically swallows that amniotic fluid, and it gets into its lungs and its digestive system, and it's taken up very readily. It gives that chick an early exposure and allows its immune system to develop in response to that vaccine more readily and more early than it would have before.
Poultry farmers are much more likely to get a bird delivered to them that is healthier and more protected against potential diseases. It also takes the human error out when trying to vaccinate 25,000 birds per house. Here's how the process works. After being weighed, the eggs are sent to a candler, which is really like a flashlight.
Basically, all we do is take this light and put it directly to the large end of the egg. And as you can see in this egg here, you can see the air cell visibly shown. This egg here is about an 18-day-old egg, and you can see that it's got a nice, well-formed air cell. We can see there at the top. And at the bottom there, it's very dense. That's where the embryo is. And we want it to look like this, and the fact that it's nice and dark and solid in there, which would indicate a live embryo. And in fact, sometimes you can see that embryo jump in there in response to that warm light. You can also see at various points some blood vessels in there, and that's a good sign that you've got a nice, healthy, live embryo. If we run across an egg, however, like this one, you can see that's called a clear. There's obviously no embryonic development in that egg. There's no air cell development, and you can see that there's no vascularity, or there's no dark area indicating a live embryo. So that egg apparently was unfertilized, and we just pull that out and don't consider that in our incubation process. So after candling, we've ensured that all these eggs are embryonated, and then we're ready for the vaccination process, the Inovo vaccination process.
During that process, trays of eggs are run down a conveyor belt and injected all at once.
You would think, sticking a needle into that large end of the egg through the air cell, actually into the amnion near the embryo, would be invasive, very invasive to the embryo. But the embryo accepts it very well. It grows, it responds well. In fact, when that needle is taken out of the egg, the whole remains in that shell, but it has really very little effect to the embryo. The embryo does very well, and I guess the surprising thing is how well it does and how well it responds, that it really is not a problem to the embryo.
The birds hatch 3 days later and are sent to the farm to grow out to full size.
Of course, with the advancement in our breeding process and the genetic selection, we've seen a much shorter interval of time that they require on the grow out level. That we're down to about 42 days or so that we can harvest that chicken, and where it took a much longer time just 20 years ago or 50 years ago. So we've seen a huge progress in that area. It takes a much shorter period of time. The bird's also more feed efficient in that process as well.
The advantages to the farmer are obvious, but there's also an advantage to the consumer.
The consumer's going to see a cost savings, at the grocery store. They're going to buy a package that's going to be cost less per pound, so that savings gets passed on to the consumer in the long run. We can put out of our mind the fact that there are no antibiotics, and that there's no growth promotants per se that are provided to these birds. It's purely to protect the bird against disease. And then so they're going to get a product which is really free of all these, quote, additives that they might have worried about before. And of course, any vaccine that's given to that bird is cleared from their system anyway. So they wouldn't have any vaccine per se contact. As early as it's given, it's going to have its effect to protect that bird, but it's going to be cleared from the system, and then there's of course can be no contamination whatsoever to the consumer. So it's a safe product. It's a cheaper and safe product for that consumer.
Technological advances like this are another reason that American agriculture provides you with the safest, most abundant, and most affordable food in the world. When we return, we'll show you how some innovative county farm bureaus promote agriculture. Stay with us. Most people know that Farm Bureau is an advocate for agriculture and that we fight for farmers in rural Mississippi in the legislature every year. But what some people might not know is how Farm Bureau promotes agriculture to the general public. One way that we do this is by holding a county ag promotion contest. County farm bureaus across the state are encouraged to find unique and effective ways to get the word out about agriculture. Here are some of the county efforts. Meet Buddy McNutty. In reality, this is County Secretary Rita Sargent playing the part of Buddy. Buddy helped the Monroe County Farm Bureau promote peanuts.
We have one of the largest farms of peanuts in Monroe County, and it's the William Atkins Farm. And on the poster behind me, you see pictures that starts from planting it in the ground until it comes into production of making the peanut butter.
Buddy also visited a local elementary school to help them learn about growing peanuts.
You put the peanut in the ground, you cover it up with dirt, and it grows.
In addition to the classroom visits, peanuts were also promoted in the county office.
We are grilling peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for our customers. We are giving out bags of peanuts. We're giving peanut butter spreaders, aprons. We've given out pot holders, just different things that we've given out to our customers just to show them that, we are promoting peanuts.
In Carroll County, longtime Women's Chairman Betty Taylor came up with a unique way to promote beef.
When the traffic would start by and I would step out in the street and wave my little boa and hold up the sign, some people would look at me and then they'd look off and then they'd look back like, did I really see a chicken on the street in front of the Farm Bureau office? This doesn't happen in Carroll County very often. And we had one beef producer, I'm sure he had a beef tag on his truck, and he came by and when he saw me with the Eat More Beef sign, he immediately started honking his horn. He was so excited that I was out promoting beef, I'm sure. It was quite fun to be here. I guess I was here from about 10:30 that morning till after lunch. A little bit cold and nippy, but we survived. I'd run back in and get warm and go back out and do my thing again.
Some counties have taken a different road. DeSoto and Tate counties went together to hire a part-time ag education specialist.
We have a limited number of volunteers in DeSoto County who can help with bringing agriculture to the classroom and other areas. And so we thought, and also the sheer number of schools that we have in DeSoto County alone, 40 plus schools, and that does not count private schools and a large number of homeschoolers. So we decided it would be a good idea to hire someone to help us with this big responsibility of bringing agriculture to to the classroom.
So they hired Dr. Sandy Slocum, who got her doctorate in ag and extension education at Mississippi State. On this day, she was working with third graders about dairy cows.
We showed them a little bit about cows, both dairy and beef. And we focused on the dairy because we had an opportunity where we can allow them to try their hand at milking the cow. They actually today made whipped cream. We had 2 of the groups that made whipped cream, and then they got to taste that. And then 2 other groups that shook their cream a little bit longer until it turned into butter. And we spread that on crackers, and so they were able to taste the butter that they had made as well. But we tell them a little bit about the breeds of cows, the difference between dairy cows and beef cattle. We also tell them, maybe sometimes how much it costs to have a dairy cow or to raise cows, what they eat, what they drink.
And the third graders asked some really good questions.
They asked, when a calf is born, how does the mama know if it's a boy or a girl? So those are the kind of questions we get. Even, how the calf is born, what if they have twins? They also ask about the quarters on the cow, how the milk comes from that, what happens if they don't have all 4 quarters. They ask specifically, crossbreeding, both beef and dairy.
Dr. Slocum says that when kids have a chance to meet a real farmer, it really enforces the message that they've heard.
I know when we did the cotton program, and we brought a real cotton farmer. It was almost like a superhero celebrity. You know, the kids were just thrilled to get the stickers that said, I met a farmer today. And so I felt like that really boosted the farmer's self-esteem, you know, that he really was important in these children's eyes, but it also helped the kids to realize where their clothes come from, that a real person grows that cotton, a real person milks those cows.
Several days later, Dr. Slocum received a package of thank you cards from the children, telling her how much they enjoyed the presentation and how much they learned. More than 25 members of the Mississippi Legislature convened recently to learn a little bit about the state's largest and most important industry, agriculture. Members of the agriculture committees from both the Mississippi Senate and the House of Representatives boarded a bus at the Capitol to embark on a tour of agriculture in central Mississippi. This tour, sponsored by Farm Bureau, was designed to show how diverse agriculture is here in the state.
Agriculture is the #1 industry in the state of Mississippi, and that's what we need to, you know, more focus on agriculture. We don't have enough farmers, in my opinion, in the legislature, and we need more to help protect the rural way of life.
The first stop was a cattle farm, where the farmer explained how he bought cattle, then takes care of them until they are ready to sell. Then it was on to an equipment dealer to let the legislators see firsthand how expensive it is to own large equipment.
I came from a family of 12. My parents were farmers, and I know what chopping cotton, picking cotton, tractors. I was telling her I can drive a tractor. Those combiners, those bean thrashers, and all of those. I was amazed to see how they have come to being something new.
I was fortunate enough to be born and raised in the rural part of Mississippi, and it's still very important to me. So it gives me avenue to work with parts of Mississippi that the average representative doesn't get to work with.
The afternoon part of the tour started by driving past large row crop operations and hearing descriptions of how the large equipment they had seen that morning worked in the fields. The tour ended at a diversified farm that produced corn, cotton, soybeans, and cattle.
It's always good to go out on the farm and see the cattle and how big some of these farm operations are. I didn't realize, you know, some of them are that large. You know, we have 50 cows on ours, which is not many compared to thousands like we just saw.
As the legislative body continues to become more and more urban, these types of tours are critical to educating our lawmakers.
It is real important because this is where our food comes from, and this is why we need to understand that ag is very important, not just in the Delta, but everywhere, because of the different crops that we have that people use for different things. This is very important, and I believe that if all of the legislators, Senate and House members could come out and see what it is that farmers do, they would have a better insight as to why it is important to fund these kind of activities that we need to carry on ag for the state of Mississippi.
My daddy was an ag teacher when I was growing up, and we always went to the Memphis Fair and worked the barnyard. And you always had these kids coming in, and they didn't know what a chicken was or a duck, and they were always amazed at animals because they'd never seen them before. So, you know, it's always a good thing to get people to go to the farms and see how they are.
What worries me is we got over 7 billion people in this world we're trying to feed now. 2050, we're gonna have, they're projecting over 9 billion people. We're trying to get food to them. I believe that's our biggest concern. Agriculture got a good future ahead of it.
On our Meet a Farmer segment this time, we visit with Matt Hudson from Stone County.
We've got a few mama cows, about 120 mama cows, and I've got about 100 head of calves that, you know, we precondition, and we'll buy them, you know, sometime during the summer, get them straight, and then, you know, we'll feed them until we get grass for them.
Matt is in the unusual position of being a first-generation farmer. His family never farmed or owned cattle.
We rodeoed. I used to rope calves, and I went to the high school national finals all 4 years, and I loved fooling with these cattle.
So he took some leftover scholarship money and bought 10 Holstein steers.
I was able to buy a few sets of, a few mama cows, and I just kept turning them over, and every little bit I made, I'd replace some. And I just kept working, working up to to where I'm at today. And it's, you know, I've been mighty fortunate.
After several years of doing pretty well with cattle, Matt decided he wanted to try his hand at raising soybeans.
It's worked out good. I mean, I planted 100 acres this year for my first time, and I hope to be able to plant 200 next year. Mighty fortunate we got all the rain we needed, and we just started cutting them, and they're cutting excellent so far.
Matt says the biggest issue facing agriculture in his mind is the high price of inputs.
I would say the hardest thing is, you know, is the fuel and the fertilizer cost and things along those lines.
Starting a farming operation from scratch is a daunting task, but Matt says he's had plenty of support.
I had some people that farmed back in the day that was willing to help me. You know, I mean, with the knowledge part of it, to the do's and the don'ts. My family, they never had any cattle or anything. I mean, you know, my folks helped me do anything I, you know, ever wanted to do. I mean, they was a supporter all the way, but I never had any farming background, you know, prior to getting started on my own. That's for sure.
We'll be back with more right after these messages. Stay with us. Now it's time for our Mississippi on the Menu segment with our home economist, Nancy Freeman, as she prepares a holiday staple, corn casserole.
I love driving down the roads and seeing all that lovely corn growing in our fields here in Mississippi. Did you know that most of the corn you see is what we call field corn, and it's used for animal feed as well as for ethanol production? But you know, there's always that sweet corn that's grown, and most of it's consumed as fresh ears of corn that you do on the grill, or you might be having a crawfish boil or something like that around your house, and that boiled corn is just delicious. And something you might not know, that corn on the cob or even cut off of it is a whole grain, which is great for your diet. So corn is something you want to always introduce. I want to show you a quick and easy recipe for a corn casserole that you can make, and it's just starting out with whole kernel corn, and then we're going to add some cream style corn. And to this we're going to add some sour cream. Now I chose to use the light sour cream so we can be a little bit healthier with this. But you know, corn is extremely healthy. It has lots of vitamin A, it has lots of potassium, thiamine that's in it, and it's also, again, a good source of fiber. And this is a little bit of melted margarine that we've added to it. And to that we're going to add just your favorite kind of cornmeal mix. And we're just going to stir this up, and it's easy to do. I love to do recipes that only have a few ingredients that are easy to find that you can make with your family for a nice meal. And you know, this is also something good if you've got community dinners that you're going to, or a potluck maybe at your child's school. Great thing to use for that. And so we've got our 9x13 dish, and all I've done is I've sprayed it with some nonstick spray, and we're going to put this into our dish. And I'm going to smooth the top down a little bit. And this is going to bake for about 45 minutes in our oven at about 350, and it's a great little product when it comes out. And just before you're finished, and you'll see our finished product here, I put a little bit of cheese on the top. And you can tell this is just a great little dish. It's easy to serve. Man, talk about a nice dish to have on your family's meal. Check us out at our website at growingmississippi.org.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of Voices of Agriculture. We hope you've enjoyed the show and will be with us again next time. For all of us here at the Mississippi Farm Bureau, thanks for watching.